So we're going to kick off this block by chatting with Gabrielle Genevieve and the Small Talk team. We're going to have a little small talk about small talk. So please give a warm round of applause.
Hello. Cool. Sweet. Hello, everybody. We are Small Talk. We are actually Pale Room. Our game is Small Talk. We are a team of 3 people based in Austin, Texas. This is like kind of our handles, but we'll have more of the information like towards the end of it as well. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start. So I wanted to start this talk off with a preface. And it starts off with a quote. It isn't the worst idea I've ever heard. These are some of the very first words told to me when I was initially pitching Small Talk to a friend. I felt nervous since it would be my very first game as an indie developer, and I decided to turn to someone I thought I could trust. I wanted a sort of pat on the back, a gestured, "Go ahead, try it, I support you." That unfortunately wasn't the case. They shrugged it off as a mediocre idea. I felt bad, went home, and thought a lot about like whether or not this concept was any good, whether I should even keep moving forward. Now, I'm a pretty insecure person at times, but if there's one thing I can't stand, it's giving up to attitudes like that. It lit a fire in me, so I went deep. I started using much of the animosity of my supposed mediocrity as an integral part of my creative process. I threw coals on the fire instead of walking away. I used what hurt me to keep going, and I also turned to the support of people who believed I should try. I'm telling you this story because I wanted to talk today about some of the creative driving forces behind Small Talk. How sometimes, even after you prevail so much, there's still so many obstacles. I also just wanted to say to any newcomers who are wavering on their ideas, you can make anything you want, no matter how small, and don't let anyone have control over that. All right, so we're going to go ahead. So yeah, I did this. I turned weird inner turmoil into art. Cool. So yeah, I'm gonna go into like the art part of the Small Talk. A lot of the aesthetic is design and the choices that were made that actually like kind of were finalized there, and kind of where I was started off as an illustrator and animator. So yeah. So all right, so I make GIFs. Woo! And yeah, I actually started posting Instagram about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, and they were like kind of these. They weren't as intricate as like the later art that I ended up going with, but I just kind of had these small, simple ideas where I wanted to get a lot of my thoughts and emotions out after like kind of undergoing like various like strange events and just negativity. Then I wanted to like somehow focus that attention on animation and like put like kind of like a diary out for the world to see and have people like just hopefully maybe see themselves in a little bit. Like it just be kind of ambiguous enough, but so like maybe you can read it and it's kind of like a song lyric where you actually get to maybe see yourself in it a little bit, which actually kind of ended up being one of the bigger themes in Small Talk. So I'm going to go through a couple of the GIF stuff. Yeah, so these are like sort of like early concepts. They don't really have any color. But they actually are like kind of thematically very related to Small Talk. All right, so here's one. And then I even did some like kind of cute ones. I wasn't always like morose or anything like that, but yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I can actually do this. Like, I can make small GIF animations and like in a pretty good amount of time, and like have them loop and have people play it, like actually look at them and see them online and get like really good responses back. So I decided to kind of go forward with that. So I started making a little bit more intricate ones, kind of like characters and colors and stuff. And you'll actually kind of notice that the colors are like very related to Small Talk's illustration colors. I always use a red line because I typically like to. Whenever I'm sketching on paper, I actually like when I use a red pencil, like you'd always go over it with ink. And I always didn't like that. Like I just wanted the red line part. I don't know, I always thought it was like aesthetically better looking. So I kind of kept with it. And then it kind of limits your palette into what colors you can have. So you'll see this like kind of throughout everything. And some of my gifts, like I have like really small anecdotes that I like to like kind of include. So in this one, it says, maybe this is the universe's way of keeping us from figuring it out. And it's got to do with like laundry, and I just like happened to be at a laundromat and like just felt really inspired because it's such a different space, and everyone goes there for like a functional thing, and like you do have a lot of like thought there, and like, you know, people are just like all keeping to themselves though. And like if you look kind of above where the washing machines are going around with these primary colors, like it says like small, it's like, who are you? So it's these kind of like tiny little anecdotes that are sometimes hidden, which I kind of like. So if you're like looking at it for a long time, you can kind of parse out some equal information. So yeah. And here's another one. And this one is cool because like I use a lot of like experience, like personal experience to write a lot of the stories in small talk and kind of make these characters really personable. This one is actually a quote that my dad told me. And it says like, look for gentleness, and it just felt very like, it appealed to me at the time, and it meant a lot. So it's kind of like a very reflective kind of gift. And then this one, I like this one too. So it's like, what happens if you align your self-worth with how much work you do? Which I felt a lot like kind of going into the project, like, you know, you want to do the best job and you want to like work hard, and it's kind of like that balance between it. So if you actually look on the little ticket, it has like, what more do you want? And so you can kind of like see that. All right, so yeah, so a lot of these are just kind of like, they're like kind of hiding behind this like really kind of pastel color aesthetic, and have these kind of like hopefully deeper meanings, and hopefully deeper meanings to everybody. It's not just me. It's just people that read it, they actually have like some sort of relation, or maybe they've gone through that. So I'm trying to like promote that and not be so like, oh, this is my exact experience. Like I want it to be open-ended and stuff. So yeah, here's a couple more. I like that one that says, I once gave up and nothing special happened. Because it's true. Yeah, okay. All right, here's some more. And you'll see on this, like the one on the right there is like a girl dropping a glass down kind of out of a condo. It's kind of like me getting like kind of fed up at a party and just being like very, just like having a weird night, you know? And it just was like, I just want to like, not that I did this, but I just, maybe I wanted to. But in the windows, I think it says, wake me sometime from now. So that was kind of like an internal thought that I had at this specific event. But it's kind of hidden in there. So, yep. I like myself when I'm sad. I like to use these I like to use these experiences like, I like to use them because they help out with my creative process. And like the story I told earlier, I don't like to stop. I like to like actually like explore those feelings and explore like kind of the sad, morose part of things, but kind of like put this different aesthetic on top of it. And I find that like it really creatively drives me. Like I feel like I am able to see inside of myself and try and like make small anecdotal tidbits of just like personal reflection in life. So it just feels very personal and great. So our game, small talk. All right. And how does this all relate? All right. This is our team. Chris Chappelear is the developer.
Hello.
Emily Mayo does the audio.
Hello.
Yeah. And they're a really great team. We're just a team of 3. And we're based out here. And yeah, we got together about sometime in February, kind of more formally, to actually start working on this project and kind of moving forward and getting on the same page for ideas. All right. So here are some of our influences. Into is made by Audrey Moon, is a spectacular person. And then Sacramento was also a big influence too, because the way like the billboarding was done in that game, it just felt very like, it felt very right. And I was like, oh, okay, that's like, it makes it feasible. It makes it look like I can like use similar looks to that and it'll look okay. All right. So I'm going to go into a little bit more about how the game got started. So I put this this particular animation out on Twitter, and it got like a little bit of buzz. And I thought like, hey, maybe there's something behind it, you know, like you get to interact with somebody and like make this decision and kind of go inside of their like eye and go inside of their mind and kind of see what's kind of going on. You can see like little question marks in there, and it's like, oh, what's really going to happen in there, which I thought was kind of a cool idea. And so I went to Chris, and Chris and I were both looking at this, and we were just like super influenced just by this, and like, hey, like maybe we can actually like make like, you know, this idea behind going inside people's minds in a party setting. And like, cause like you typically, when you go to a party, you can't really like tell what's going on inside someone's mind. And so the more you talk to them, you can kind of like see like their worldview or like kind of what they're going through. And we were definitely interested in exploring that as an idea for a game. All right, so I'm gonna show like really, really embarrassing art. This is like it's very beginning initial concept stuff, and just like look at how ugly it is. It's like there's this like weird double thing with the dock box, like it's so gross, and it says shore, like so informal, you know.
I think I made the walls of that room.
Yeah, yeah. Look at the walls. They're great, actually. But yeah, so we actually initially created Small Talk to sort of you were able to go into this party setting in a 2D, 3D environment, and you're able to interact with these characters there, and you're able to like I think our first concept was like, oh, you can go into their mind and like kind of venture through these like, or just like kind of look at these vignettes, and they were going to be very stationary, and that was going to be it. Like you weren't going to be able to like traverse through a level or anything. So you would just like go inside someone's mind, and it would be like kind of a flat plane world, like a diorama, but you weren't able to interact with anything there. And we like soon learned, I think I went over to Chris and I was like, Chris, can we make it whole levels? And it was like very, and Chris is like, yes, we can. It's like so much more work, but you know, it would be a lot better of experience. And I think we both agreed on that. We knew that we wanted it to be like a little bit more and show a little bit more of the minds and stuff like that. So yeah, you can see a little dialogue box. That's like the first one, and the one above that is actually like if you play downstairs, there's like one of the mind rooms is it's the Eggman's mind room. You're able to go in, and there's like a big mama bird there, and you see like a baby Eggman at the bottom. And this was like the initial thing for it, and it's so like barren. So it's a lot more decked out now. So all right, here's some more stuff. Here's some like initial concepts for like the mind room icon. We were kind of like, okay, like do we want to have an inspection kind of value? And also to the right of that is like me mocking up like, oh, like this is how we want it to look, like how we want the dialogue system to work, and kind of like where the mind room kind of comes in. And it's just kind of like, I love the like initial concepts, because it just feels like it's so old, and you look back and you're kind of like, oh, these aren't very good at all, but it's also just so much more realistic. Like it just feels like, you know, we came out to like, and we actually like, you know, made it happen and like made it from there. So yeah, here's like an old GIF. Look at it. It's so bad. Oh, like look at the wall. You see like where you can see through it. It's like, I was so proud of this. I was like, this is the best. Like I'm so happy. Like, oh God, looking at it now, it's just like, oh my gosh, over and over. So yeah. So then we moved on. I moved on to making a lot of the characters, and like it just kind of flew out of me. Like it was like just a couple weeks, and I was just like, I have to make all these like really crazy characters, and it was just like drawing one after the other. And for each of the characters, like down there, you'll see like, because I use like this kind of boiled red line. And each of the characters and every asset in the game is hand drawn and hand animated. So it took a lot of work. It was like thousands of drawings, just like drawing each individual frame of like every like just character, like lifting a cup up. And actually, in this one, next one this is Chris. And for some reason, I can't play the video, which would have been way better. But this is like, I actually asked a bunch of my friends like to actually like pose for reference, like so I could animate them, and like a bunch of them did it, and so it was like very helpful just to like kind of expedite the process behind like characters, and also it kind of made like a more personable effect to each of the characters. So Chris is technically the Eggman. So yeah. All right. So moving on to like the actual like content and how the gifts before kind of relate to small talk as a whole. I ended up kind of like looking at like a lot of the themes, and I talked over with Chris about it a lot. It was just like, hey, like we want this to be like more like a introspective game. We want people to actually think about like themselves and maybe see themselves in a lot of the things that are being said. And kind of when you're moving around as like a first person character, and you're just able to like make your own decisions essentially. Like you can control who you want to talk to at a party, which is exactly how it is in real life. And you are walking around, and like it's actually has this like overarching narrative of like the world is ending. So like it's like the end of the world. There's this crazy party going on. You showed up. You don't know anybody there, and you get to actually like learn about people, and like hopefully like you can see some of yourself when you talk to them. And I think that was like kind of a nice theme that we went with. So that's what we kind of wanted from small talk, is to make it more of a mirror. So yeah, there's like a little kind of screenshot of the axolotl, like just being, and I think it like, so like if you look at his like, and also like, so there's like tiny little details in a lot of the gifts that I make. And there's also like some details also in the characters. So if you look at like this axolotl, like there's like a little badge, like a little winner badge, and it says like you tried. And then like the next one's like you like I'm tired or something, and it like just kind of like moves everything around, but it's like it's so split second in the animation that you don't really see it unless you're like really paying attention to it. And yeah, I always just like adding those little tiny anecdotes for people that are like really paying attention and rewarding that kind of gameplay. So right, and actually we're not going to play it right yet. I'm going to let Emily, she's going to talk about the audio and stuff in there. So yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to that.
Cool. Yeah, that's the DJ. So, how do I?
Use the arrow keys.
Oh, okay. So first of all, the rest of this, or at least my section of this, is not going to look nearly as good as what came before. I'm really sorry about that, but I believe in us, and I believe in all of you, and I know that together we can get through this. So, going into the audio for small talk, I had some big picture ideas that I really wanted to implement. And one of the most important ones was I wanted to strike a balance between the fantastical and the realistic. Because you look at these characters, and most people don't look like that. Most people don't have egg heads. But you're still at a party, and it's still like at a condo full of things that you recognize. Like, we're not trying to put the player totally out of their depth into a completely fantastical situation. Ultimately, the stories that are being told are very human ones. And so I just wanted to make sure that there was a good balance of appropriate sounds for the more mundane aspects of the setting, while still leaving room for more fantastical things. Other big goal, I guess, was, like, I have it in 2 bullet points, but they're technically pretty related. Create a wide range of soundscapes and music, each asset geared towards its specific location. Each mind room is very different, and I wanted them to feel different. And so towards that end, a lot of widely different genres of music were explored, and so were widely different soundscapes. But at the same time, these soundscapes and these music pieces are controlled by a specific, predictable, interactive system that imparts information to the player, which is the ultimate goal of game audio as a concept. But it doesn't matter what mind room you're in or what you're hearing, it's going to work the same way every time. So through that, you can kind of get a feel for how far you are. And wow, a lot of text. All right. So sound design. So for the party sounds, a lot of that was just recorded around my house, which was really fun. I just spent an afternoon clinking cups together and opening doors and then closing the doors. So also footsteps. There was a lot of me going around with a shotgun mic outside and inside, getting different surfaces. There's a fridge in the kitchen, in the party room, and if you get close to it, it hums, and that is my fridge. So that's neat. The mind room sounds, there's a lot more emphasis on ambience and setting a mood. There's not a whole lot of stuff, like specific objects that are ambiently making sounds, and there's also a pretty limited range of what you can interact with to make sounds. So a lot more of that was just, it was just very focused on setting a mood. UI sounds were all synthesized using native instruments, massive. Maybe that means nothing to you, and that's okay. Maybe it means something to you, and that's okay too. But they're all very minimalist because I didn't want to have to change the UI sounds for everything because that would be a lot. That would be a whole lot. So they're all very minimalist. It's a lot of soft little whooshes and clicks and nothing too obtrusive. Voiceover. So all voiceover was provided by all these beautiful people. I'm going to name them because I know they worked so hard. Eric and Diane Mayo, Marianne Darty, Haley Campbell, Joseph Zalata, Mikey Garcia, Crosby Cook, and also me that one time. And all of it was kind of done over a short amount of time. It was pretty short notice, and these lovely people agreed to do it on very short notice. And part of what that meant was that I would go over to their house with my Zoom H4 and like a mic and a stand and a pop filter, and I would make them stay in their closet, just hang out in there and make mouth sounds, and it was great. Oh no, where's the music? There it is. So, a little bit about the music. My first major focus when I got brought on the project was the track that plays in the party room, because that's where the player is going to be spending the most amount of time. You want to really make sure that it's long enough and also that it's not annoying. So as y'all are about to hear, it is a longer loop than, say, the Mind Room loops. It's pretty chill. It doesn't draw too much attention to itself. And then for the Mind Rooms, each piece is widely different. One fun fact about when I was brought on, we had a slightly smaller timetable and a slightly larger scope. And what that meant was that because I thought it was necessary, each piece was written pretty much as quickly as I could manage. I think I was averaging like one piece a night. And each one would be about a minute long, and it'd be like roughly 4 tracks or less, which is kind of my game jam mode of writing. And I've gone back and added more things. It's okay. I had a blast. I mean, it's fun to write that way. But at the time I was always thinking like, oh, these tracks are so short. If only there was more time, and there was more time. And instead of making them longer, we were able to make them interactive, which is really exciting for me because usually when I work with a dev, trying to get them to put interactive music in a game is like pulling teeth. It's really hard. So, but Chris was up to the task. Thank you for that. And and so now we have this little interactive music system that'll kind of like let the player know how far they are in a mind room without being like super obtrusive and too like game-y. because we experimented a little bit with actually having progression sound effects, and that just put people right out, you know, like that sort of thing. That's too gamey. But this is much more subtle, and it gets the point across without being annoying. So I'm really happy that that's in there. And I'm pretty sure that that is all I have to say about audio for now. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think at this point I'm just going to jump into Unity just to show a little bit of the dev environment. So maybe. All right, so this is going to be kind of hard with one hand holding a mic, but I'm going to do my best. So this is our
It's not on the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think you need to.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, one
I think
second.
you need to like get out of presentation mode, whatever that is.
There you go.
There we go.
Effective.
Uh,
Uh-oh.
1 second, technical difficulties. Just duplicate me. Yeah. Cool.
hell yeah.
All
we
right.
go.
So this is the party room with all the characters in there. We actually have this hidden room that's inaccessible. I don't know how that ended up there.
I don't know. We got lazy and we were like, we needed to like work on other things. And so there's kind of a couple of these like kind of things we just kind of left in the game. So
Yeah, strangely you could get out of it, but you can't get in it.
yeah, we should put like a little Easter egg in there.
Yeah, nothing, no door on the other side.
Yeah.
So let's see. What else do we have in here? The characters. So each of these characters here. Most of the characters are billboarded. We have dialogue trees that are just in XML. The sprites, the way that we're doing the animation, we just have, sorry, not that. Just drag in a bunch of individual frames and loop them. So that's about it. Oh, I can go into mine, yeah.
Set up or like that kind of thing,
Sure.
maybe.
Oh man, so many frames.
There we go.
We actually previously had it. I see this. We previously had it to where you could pretty much instantaneously jump from the main party into the mine. So like as soon as you hit their eye or zoomed into the character, then it would be into the mind room. But then Gabby put in the title cards, and we actually really liked those a lot. So we ended up adding that segment. It gave it a little bit of a bookend and
Like more of a chapter feel. So when you play it, like you have all these like you just have these nice title cards that add to the like aesthetic and the intrigue behind whatever level you're going into, and they're really abstract. So when you go inside, it's not necessarily like, oh, this is going to show like Eggman's day-to-day life. It's like, oh, this is like Eggman's like kind of what he's thinking, or maybe it's like a memory that's mashing up with like another thing that's happening in his mind too. Kind of like how our thoughts kind of like warp together sometimes. So kind of more emphasis on that. So you'll see in this level, like this is the mind room and with all the branches, and they're just like all flat pings, and I just like positioned them in positions that were like kind of like pretty, so that it looked like kind of like you're like going through this like really nice tunnel. And you'll see at the very end there the mother character, which we'll go into actually playing the game, just to show you kind of a little bit of a playthrough. So yeah.
I'll do that now.
All right, so you start off in this like corridor room, and it's like you're just like whenever you go to anybody's party, like you kind of like you have to find out like where they're in like this weird apartment complex that's always different, and you go up like these levels, and then just like all these kind of variety of rooms. So you like look at these like so I like to put in these like little welcome like the mats, because that's always like you can get a kind of idea for the personality that lives there. And so,
Me on saxophone.
oh yeah,
That was the first time I had played saxophone in 7 years.
sounds great.
It's very nice. of you.
I like this one.
Okay, this fight, funny story about that. That's my brother and his wife. They got married literally last week. And they're fighting in this game. It's beautiful. True love.
Yep. So yeah, there's like all these like, but this kind of like attributes to like more of like, okay, when you're adding like little details, like people like, it's funny because when I'd have friends play the game, they would actually like blast through parts like that, and like that's just like their play style. But like, you know, I want to have definitely like this more reward factor for people that are paying attention or like want to be a little bit more like, you know, checking the surroundings a bit. So yeah. So this is like the main party room that we're going to be going into. Kind of go out to this like main area, and you'll kind of notice like on the walls, like I did like a lot of what I showed with the animated GIFs. I kind of continued that theme inside the like. So you'll see these like kind of portraits on the wall or paintings on the wall that are all like animated GIFs with like just strange abstract like kind of imagery. So like over here, if you look behind these two characters, this kind of bridge, which is like one of the aqueducts in Rome, and it says "I am so lucky," and like it doesn't like necessarily mean anything to anybody, but for me it's like, oh, like that actually like survived time, and like seeing those kinds of things in like history, I don't know, it just kind of spoke out to me, and it's like, oh, it's saying it's lucky that it survived, you know. So yeah, so we're just kind of looking around all the characters, and you're able to like go talk to the person. And I tried to like give them all like these kind of personalities that were just very different from one another, like that were like kind of off a bit, but also like they're hiding something, but they're also willing to tell you like random parts about themselves, which is kind of fun, which happens at parties sometimes. And we also like, we debated on whether or not having, this is like kind of fun to do the dialogue system actually in the game and not in UI. So this was like kind of cool because it's actually in the world. So if you like move the cursor, like your head will always kind of like come back to the center, just to kind of like, you know, regain focus, because when you're at a party and you're talking to somebody, like you don't necessarily like look away completely and just stop talking to them. That would be very weird. Not that the game is not weird at all, but there's like a little TV that you can actually change the channel on. Yeah, there's like this big character out here, and then there's like this little balcony, and like right here is like a character named Dread. Yeah, it's so nice. Okay, and just yeah. Yeah, so that fish. Yeah, here. Yeah, little fish buddy with like little legs sticking out, like it ate a kid. I don't know what I was thinking when I made that. Better as a mystery. And if you actually look at the outside, so there's like these kind of like meteors falling from the sky, like that actually like are like kind of alluding to like this end of the world thing that the actual bird was talking about in the front, which you're like, oh, okay, like why is everyone oddly so calm? Like why is everyone still hanging out? Like the world is about to end, like, but it's kind of just adding to this like very mysterious intrigue. Like, will it end tonight? So yeah, you can kind of go down this hallway, and it's like this is kind of this really nice condo with all these like, oh, if you look at this gift down here, I like this one too. Like, see it? So yeah, and it's kind of going through a lot of stuff, but yeah, chocolate chips. So they always like say these kind of like very far out things to get you kind of thinking about yourself and life and stuff. Oh. And then this one actually is quite quiet because sometimes people don't want to talk to you. So let's see. Let's go inside of a mind room. I think. What do you think is a good mind room to go into? Let's do it. Yeah, we'll go into the egg one's mind because you've already seen that one. And in this build, we actually have like up to 4 mind rooms, and we expect a lot more. So here we have like a it's like a dialogue option where you're able to like kind of decide what you want to say, and then they respond to that. What do you think, Miss? Self-preservation is key, is that right? All right, so this is our mind room icon. You're able to like, okay, well this is the next set, and you're able to like actually like, you go ahead and press spacebar. Able to go inside. And here's the title card that Chris was mentioning earlier. Alright, so we start off. You'll notice like Emily's dynamic music is in here. And, like it'll add a piece of sound to every creature you talk to inside of the living rooms. So these are all like kind of Eggman's thoughts, and you can kind of just like maybe like implore a bit more like what Eggman actually means by all of it. But it's kind of for you to decide. Here's Mama Bird. This is the mama of Eggman. You see a little face at the bottom with the Eggman's baby, like a little memory. And so you get these like little kind of just objects from each of the mind rooms that you kind of collect and you go about, and you're able to actually look at later, and will be a little bit more detailed and more fleshed out the further we get along with the game. But yeah, so yeah, that's going to be our game. Thank you.
So do we have any questions from the audience? Yeah. All right. I'm coming for you. You want to start off?
Hi. So
Hey.
Emily had mentioned that the scope had changed at a certain point during development. Can you guys talk a little bit about what inspired that change and how things changed as a result?
The scope. I guess like so you talked about how things like, are you saying like how things grew?
There was a scope adjustment, and I was
Oh,
writing
yeah,
a lot
indeed.
more music a lot more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we had just originally planned to have a lot more mind rooms that you would go into, and then decided that that wasn't really where we wanted to focus the energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I was like kind of adjusting like, okay, well like maybe we're gonna have like more detailed music for like and less mind rooms instead of so much music, and then having to not like give each one like so much time. So kind of adjusting for that, and also like the dynamic parts of it too, right? Like that took an adjustment.
It was an adjustment. I had to go back and make sure that there was enough in each, like the Eggman room specifically. Like that's a piano piece. That's one instrument. I had to go back and like rewrite 4 different versions, ranging from sparse to not sparse.
We had another question up here. Was that you, Davey?
When you had the Unity editor open, I saw, and you were looking at the sprite renderer, and where you drag in all of the individual frames for each character, each animation.
Yeah.
I saw that there was a randomize button. Is there any possibility that we could go into that and randomize a couple of characters' animations and just see how they look?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
That sounds
Yeah.
fun. Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's gonna look really creepy. Let's do Eggman might be a good one because it's like kind of a longer animation. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Let's see that. You don't think
We'll see if it'll run.
Aspect. Oh my gosh, look at this terrifying thing, Davey. What have you done?
No.
Eggman, no. Oh my gosh. I almost want to do it to like all of them. And just like go in this like very terrifying party and just have so much anxiety. Yeah. Oh my gosh. What would be another good one for this? Oh, the head. Yeah, let's do that one.
Yeah.
I think it's MC. MC. No, that's the cat. No. It's not that. It's I forget the head's name. BP head. Yeah. Cool. And just a ratio here. Oh gosh. It's so creepy. Imagine that coming down the hallway at you.
Oh no.
Gosh. Oh.
So I actually have a question for Gabrielle. I was curious how, you have, oh my gosh, that is terrifying. So obviously the style is really hand-drawn, but it's also really consistent. It looks like you made like maybe a font out of your handwriting. I was curious if you talk a little bit about how you maintain a really hand-drawn look, but also, keep your line widths really consistent and make it feel like a cohesive piece.
Yeah, so I use actually the same brush in Photoshop for everything. So like I don't filter from that, and that helps a lot. And just like keeping the same thing with the pixels per unit, we settled that in the very beginning. I think it's like 500 pixels per unit, right? That's what we're using. And so like just like making sure everything was like built in the like with the same, with all the others in mind. That way everything was really consistent. Like line quality didn't differ too much, because then it gets kind of distracting and it looks kind of tacky. But yeah, and so yeah, the brush helped a lot. And then having like Chris and I talking about like what the units actually were, it was very helpful in the very beginning.
Cool. Do we have any other? I think we have time for one more question.
Hey, I was wondering if you could go into maybe some of like y'all's creative writing process in the game about the characters, and like, do y'all go out and like party together to research this, or?
Well, I guess like yeah, writing it was definitely inspired by going to parties, and inspired by like one time I went to a party and like I met this one guy, like it's like the only time I ever met him, and he just went into like this entire diatribe about like how like he didn't know if he loved his girlfriend who was like in the room across the way, and I was like, what are you telling me this? But he just told me all these details about it, and it was like he just opened up, and then he just like looked at me at the end and he's like, I don't know why I just told you all that. And like he ended up like he's actually like married to her now, and they're happy or whatever. I see on like Facebook every now and then like a tagged photo, and I'm like, that's fine. But like it was just like very like inspiring to be like, okay, like how those conversations happen, and how like sometimes people will open up to you. And in terms of writing that, it was like just trying to like adjust for like personal experiences, right? And adjusting like trying to be relatable, but also it's very realistic. So we try to keep it very realistic. And I try to like when I'm writing it, it's but also like kind of introspective as well. So that's like a kind of a balance of like introspection and not being too heavy-handed on like, oh, like think deeply, it's just super existential, but also like having like, it's relatable. It's an actual experience thing. So.
Awesome. Well, let's give it up again for Team Small Talk. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you so much.
Yeah.